Get ready for the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, breaking down District 4 athletics and activities week in, week out. Brandon Baney joined by our District 4 expert. Is that Vole Boy? Volley Boy? Voila Boy? Scott Burton, what's up?
Oh, my word. It's Vole Boy. And it's because we have a little vole infestation. You know what a vole is?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
They're little rodents. They're about that big. They're like oversized mice. And this year around the valley, they have been out of control and they tear up fields. You know, so if you walk into like whether it's a field or a pasture and you see the holes in the ground and then maybe like these little trails that almost look like they're underneath the ground, but you can see them, you know, kind of standing up just a little bit. Those are voles and they are horrible to get rid of. And they come in cycles, and we're in one right now where, you know, I walk out onto our practice field and a little bit of our soccer field and, you know, tiny part of our football field, and I'll be danged, there they are. Not them, you know, but they're holes, they're burrows, you know, and so we're fighting that right now, trying to get them out of there. I'm like an eyelash away from like going Carl Spackler on this whole place, right? And just blowing it up Caddyshack style, and let's get it on. Or I come out on a weekend with my 22 and I just start throwing things in there and just picking them off when they come out of their holes, but they're awful. I don't recommend them.
I was going to say, I'm surprised you didn't put Carl Spackler as your name on the famous Bill Murray character from Caddyshack, who had gopher problems.
I should have. I don't know what the heck I was thinking. That would have been the perfect one. Actually, you know what?
Let's do it.
I'm doing it right now.
Okay, those of you that are watching on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel are going to get to see Scott change his on-screen name here from Vole Boy to Carl Spackler. If you're listening audio only at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts, you really should check out the video version every once in a while. It's on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, and it is definitely worth it just to see what type of name Scott will choose each time underneath his video screen. So,
yeah, thank you. You saved me on that one. I was struggling because, believe it or not, I'll prep as much for my name as I will for the other stuff, and I could not come up with anything. But you saved me, Brandon. Well done.
Well, let's hope your postseason preparations are going a little bit better than some teams that are already behind the 8 ball as district baseball and softball tournaments have started. And we're going to break down the brackets for you here. This is one of our bracket shows. We will put the brackets up on the screen. So again, if you're watching this at the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, you're going to be able to see the brackets up on your screen. If you're listening audio only, that's cool. We have all the district brackets on the homepage at IdahoSports.com. You can just follow along that way as well. Just for simplicity's sake, we'll go baseball, then softball, and we'll start at 4A, and we'll just work our way down to the 1A ranks. And so let me get my screen set up here, Scott. And so we will start in the Great Basin Conference for baseball. This is a 7-team affair. It's actually starting today. We are recording this on Thursday, May 4th. There are games that are actually underway, Scott, including the play-in game where Jerome, the 7 seed, is playing Canyon Ridge, the 6 seed. They're playing that game in Burley because the winner has to turn around and play the Bobcats right after this play-in game is finished.
Yeah, that's a tough place to be in. That 6-7 game, with the way our conference is set up, is, you know, it used to be to where 7 never even got to participate. And then we decided, all right, let's have 6 and 7 have a play-in game with the number 3 seed. Winner of that will turn around and play out like a doubleheader. And right now, Canyon Ridge and Jerome are battling it out as we speak. I don't have an updated score, but that matchup right there is a pretty good one. I mean, they split on the season, and Jerome winning the latest one, 11-1. And the thing about Canyon Ridge is, you know, they're not a bad team. They have really kind of one pitcher, I believe, and that's why they're not really going anywhere. Meanwhile, for Jerome, they're starting a bevy of freshmen, you know, so they are young, you know, 2 seniors, and so it's rebuilding growth for that bunch. But, you get into this Great Basin Conference, Brandon, and, you can't help but just look at the dominance that Twin has had running the table in the conference, undefeated record. Coach Stadelmeyer, again, and his boys out there getting it done. Twin is a baseball town. Spring sports roll around. It's Twin baseball, Twin softball, well, Twin track too. Twin, used to be Twin golf.
You're right.
So we moved them to the fall. They can't own the entire spring. But spring sports and Twin are very, very good. And baseball is right there.
Yeah, Twin Falls is the 1 seed. Minico is the 2 seed. And so they get first round buys. Burley, the 3 seed, as we mentioned, will play the winner of Canyon Ridge and Jerome tonight. And then you've got an interesting 4 versus 5 matchup as well. Wood River, the 4 seed, hosting Mountain Home, the 5 seed. Scott, is this their first home game of the year, postseason opener?
It's
second.
Not.
Maybe?
It's not. I think well, here's the thing. I think they played up at Wood River 2 home games. And I was talking to Kevin Stilling, their AD, earlier today. And I think what is going to happen is they got hit again with some weather. And so I think what they're going to be doing is moving that game out of Wood River, and they may be playing in Jerome. So we're working on that part of it right now. So yeah, nothing new. Wood River battling the elements.
So I take it that game is not happening today.
No, it is not. So they are, I think, going to move that here tomorrow. So I got to get a hold of Kevin tonight and work out the details. So, but, going back to the teams, yeah, that is an interesting matchup because, we talked a little bit about it last time. You don't know what you're going to get right now with Wood River. I mean, Wood River's not a bad team. I still think they're trying to find themselves because they haven't hit a groove. I mean, Coach Lawton's been trying to find dirt. And it's hard to kind of gel a team when you're just trying to find infield. But I really do think that it will be an interesting battle. If you look past Twin, I mean, Twin's formula for baseball is set for state tournaments. They've got pitching, they have timely hitting, and they've got defense. And that's really Twins' MO. I mean, they're not going to win games 15-0. They're going to get out and beat you 3-1, 4-2. And they're going to manufacture a couple of those runs behind some great pitching and solid defense. And I think the thing that people forget about Twin is they are solid defensively. I mean, their fielding percentage this year is 92.6 or 9.926, which means that they're not committing a whole lot of errors. Solid defense, a 3.5 ERA, and they only strike out 15% of the time, which means it's only 3 times a game. Of the 21 outs in a game, 3 of them are strikeouts for Twin. So they're getting the bat on the ball. Everything that makes a team good, Twin embodies, and they've got some, decent players. Salazabal hitting 500 on the year with 13 doubles, but that's a team that is number one for a reason, is because they're built that way and they've got the pieces. So I think the interesting battle is going to be that second spot because there's 2 teams coming out of here. Minico finished second. Minico, they've got 2 pitchers. And if you can get past one of them, you've got a chance because they're not a crazy offensive team. I mean, they're only hitting 253 on the year, but they do have a couple of solid pitchers in Salazar and Maybe. And between them, they've got 88 strikeouts to 33 walks between those 2 pitchers. But what do you do after that? They have a sophomore, Murphy, that contributes with a really decent ERA, but the control issues from the sophomore, they're interesting. And then Burley's coming in, one of the hotter teams in the conference, winning 6 of their last 8. They've got a couple of decent hitters in Robinson and Brookings, hitting 426 and 418 respectively. But that Brookins kid is really solid on the mound, a 1.67 ERA with 65 strikeouts. But you know what? After that is where Burley runs into some issues.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Bronson Brookins because I feel like he has been very underrated all year long. He's just quietly kind of been going about his business, kind of like Burley as a team. And you're right. baseball, because our baseball talk is going to be different than our softball talk, because in softball, the same pitcher pitches 400 million innings and it doesn't matter. In baseball, it's a little different, and you have to have a pitching staff. And so Twin Falls, you mentioned, Nolan Hardesty has the lowest ERA I've seen of any pitcher this year, 0.17, an 0.17 ERA for Nolan Hardesty at the top. He's been great. Salazabal has been great. Calvary Leiser has been great for Twin. You mentioned Minico's got two guys. I think that's why it's important that Minico got that bye, because if things go their way, they'll only have to use those two pitchers. Whereas Burley is going to have to find a way after Brookins to cobble together, who's going to step up and assume that second and third role.
And that's exactly right, too. And it's all about the depth of pitching, really, when you get to baseball. And I'm glad you mentioned, Hardesty, the 0.17 ERA, 5-1 on the year. I mean, his numbers are out of the park, 96 strikeouts to 14 walks. I mean, if you look at Twin, they've always got an ace, and then they've got ace B and ace C, and it is about the pitching. At the end of the day, it's about the pitching. And if you don't have any depth there, you'll win a game. And if you get lucky, maybe two. But after that, you're in trouble.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how pitching is used as well. And this is the age-old question, we talk about it every year, do you save your guy, your top gun, for the future? Do you try and push all in and win now? Different coaches have different thoughts based upon how their teams stack up. It infamously backfired on Kimberly at State last year, where they were up in the first game in the opening round with their number 2 starter. They pulled him to try and save him for the third day. Well, the guy that came in blew the lead. Kimberly lost, and then the pitching plan went out the window anyways. And so it's always very interesting to me how coaches choose to attack, because there's no right answer. But it's interesting to see, how they decide which way they want to go. Do you save the bullets for future rounds, or do you just try to win now and worry about tomorrow?
Yeah, and that is the interesting question, and that's where managers get their, earn their pay in the major leagues. In high school, they earn their pennies, and so it's always an interesting thing. You're a hero if it works. You're a goat, but you're kind of a fool if it doesn't work out for you. So. That's always the interesting thing, but it's always nice to have 3-4 pitchers to choose from instead of just 1 or 2, which is really kind of what the rest of the conference has.
For sure. So in this bracket specifically, we both like Twin Falls a lot. Second spot really could be Minico, could be Burley. Maybe Wood River catches lightning in a bottle, and they've got potential as well. You're right. The story in this bracket is that battle for the second spot to state. And then, of course, the 4A state tournament is going to be held at Skip Walker Field in Twin Falls. So no matter who makes it, they're going to have a short distance to go to play these games, which will be nice.
Yeah, that will be nice. And I'm excited to be on the call for that one. I don't have to travel, so I'll be the play-by-play over at Skip Walker Field for the 4A tournament, and that'll be fun. So, really interested to see who gets that. Not penciling Twin in already, but they are the favorite, and if things go the way they're supposed to, they will advance. But that second spot, that'll be interesting.
I'll pencil Twin in. I'll go ahead and pencil it in. I feel pretty good about that. All right, let's move to the 3A SCIC. The opening round was last night, Scott, Wednesday night, and top seed Kimberly beats number 4 seed Filer 16-3. Garrett Nelson was kind of the big deal there. We'll talk about Kimberly's win in a second, but more surprising was Gooding, the 3 seed, knocking off Buell, the 2 seed, 9-4 after Buell swept the regular season series.
Well, the thing is, baseball's a streaky game. And if you watch baseball long enough, it's not always going to be the best team. It's going to be the hottest team, or the team that's clicking right now. And I remember, and I liken it back to watching a lot of Major League Baseball, and watching a team like the San Francisco Giants, who would qualify as a wild card, all of a sudden just catch lightning in a bottle and go win the World Series. We saw the Pittsburgh Steelers do that with the wild cards when they were kind of having their run of Super Bowl appearances. It's about getting hot at the right time. And this Buell team struggled down the stretch. This is a team that started 10-1, and then down the stretch, they lost 6 of their last 8, and so they just were not in a position to string some wins together. And they were in prime picking territory for a team, like Gooding to knock them off. And Gooding's not a, bad squad. I mean, they finished the season with a 7-12 mark, but they do have 3 junior pitchers that can at least get up there and throw. Patterson, Church, and Page. They've got 73 of the 96 total innings pitched for Gooding. And so they do have decent pitching. And if they can just get a couple of timely hits, Gooding's one of those teams that can hang with you.
Yeah. Buell was supposed to play Filer earlier this week in the regular season finale, and they didn't play that game because I don't think it was going to impact the seeding at all, but maybe that would have been an opportunity for Buell to kind of get right ahead of the postseason. Kimberly and Gooding played the full 9 conference games. Buell and Filer only played 8 this year. I don't know, maybe a little thing, but Buell's got a chance, right? They can fight through the back half of this bracket. It is 2 teams advanced to state, so the Indians certainly aren't done yet, but you're right. They gotta find that magic again somehow.
They do, and that's exactly what it is. They've just got to remember what got them there. And sometimes the psyche of a team is the hardest thing to crack. So we'll see if Buell can find themselves. But, you look at Kimberly in this bracket, and that's a solid team.
Yeah.
And perhaps with a little chip on their shoulder. We'll see. Stat-wise, they're bringing it. I mean, they're hitting over 400 as a team, with the ERA at 4.86. But they've got 2 kids that can get on the bump and throw it in Stringham and Chadwick, both under, 3.0 ERAs. And, the Chadwick kid, especially 31 strikeouts to 7 walks. So, I mean, you got a kid with control. So they've got a nice little 1-2 punch in Kimberly. And we'll see if they remember what happened last year and if they can kind of shake that off and get something done.
Yeah, they're rolling with a first-year head coach this year at Kimberly, Tom Myers, and he's done a phenomenal job. And this is where you talked about those top 2 pitchers for Kimberly. They went with their third guy last night, essentially Garrett Nelson. He was the guy at the plate, 2 for 2, 4 RBIs. He was also the winning pitcher on the mound, 3 runs on 6 hits, 8 strikeouts in 5 innings of work. And so now you've got River Chadwick and Stringham loaded up for what Kimberly's hoping 1 game, but let's say they did lose this game with Gooding over here. They've still got 1 more bullet in the chamber for this do or die winner take all game. So Kimberly is in a great spot with their pitching.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the managerial strategy that we were just talking about. Kimberly knew that they were going to be able to put some runs up. And they knew they had a decent pitcher in Nelson. They didn't need to use their 1-2. And no matter who it was, I think Kimberly thought, you know what, we can score runs on Filer. And they did. Hung 16 of them on him. So I don't think Filer was going to score 17 runs, and Kimberly knew it. So let's throw Nelson and save the top 2.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on the SCIC championship game. Will be Friday night in Kimberly at 5:00. Buell will host Filer with their season on the line Friday night at 5:00 as well. And then that winner take all game for that second and final spot to state will be Tuesday night, May 9th at 5 p.m. as well at either Kimberly or Gooding, depending on who drops that game. That's kind of the other part now. If it's Buell and Gooding rematching for that second spot to state, Buell loses the home field advantage. And they would have to travel to Gooding for that contest as well. So
that is correct. So and we'll see what happens.
Yep. All right. Speaking of pitching, let's go to the 2A Canyon Conference. This is literally Declo and Wendell. And we've talked about what a good team Wendell has been this year. They beat Nampa Christian, the 2A powerhouse, 2 different times this year. And yet Wendell may not get to state. Declo comes out the first game and picks up a really nice victory, 7-5. And then it was interesting on the Wendell side of it because their best pitcher was not used here, Cooper Jones. And I assume Wendell's going to turn to him now with their season on the line. So Wendell didn't go with their best guy first. Now they're behind the 8 ball a little bit, down 1-0.
Yeah. That I don't know what the process there was with Cooper Jones, but you got to throw him, right? And for Declo, we talked about this before. I mean, sometimes it's just about matchups. It's about you've got another team's number, because Wendell has had a great season, but their Achilles heel has been Declo, and Declo just seems to know how to beat Wendell. And you do that enough, you get in a team's head. And for Wendell, they can go play anybody and beat anybody, but you line up Declo across them in baseball, all of a sudden the mental game is starting to really be a problem here, and in that game that they played, Silcock led the way 2 for 3 with a couple of doubles, 5 RBIs, 5 of the 7 runs were because of this kid, so Declo, though, if they're going to kind of advance, they tighten up the defense a little bit. They committed 7 errors in that game, and you're not going to win many ball games by committing that many errors. Wendell committed 3, but still Declo did it again to Wendell.
Not a long-term formula for success. Certainly Treg Zaharias started on the mound for Declo. He only allowed 3 hits, but 5 runs. All of them were unearned because of those 7 errors committed by the Hornets. And so he's like, and that's the sign of a great pitcher, picking up his teammates and saying, hey, don't worry, I got this. Let's take care of it. And so Declo did throw one of their best guys. But Declo's got the mental edge now because they've beaten Wendell now so many times. And not just in baseball, but this happened in basketball too, where Wendell had the upper hand early in the season, and by the end of the season, it had swung Declo's way to the point where they swept Wendell 2-0 in that best of 3 basketball series. And it's a lot of the same athletes on both sides here, so it really is starting to pile up mentally for Declo.
Oh, no question about it. Yeah, and you're right. It's the same athletes, and sometimes you just get so used to being on the losing end of whatever that jersey says across the way. And I know that, we fight it here sometimes too. I mean, I think a lot of teams in our conference fight that twin stigma. They see Twin Falls across the other jersey and they're like, oh, we can't beat them. And that's been kind of a lot of what teams have done around here. And if you get that kind of that air about you, then you know what? That mental game does play a huge, huge role.
Yeah. So Wendell's pitching, Jaden Connell started the game for Wendell. I would say he's probably their number 3 guy just based on innings. He only lasted 2 innings. Then their number 2 guy, Lucas McRoberts, had to come in and pitch 4 innings in relief. So you'd think that he's not going to be available much if Wendell gets to that winner take all game 3. And so they're basically backed in the corner now where Cooper Jones, we need you to pretty much pitch the whole game, get a win for us, and then we will just try to figure it out if we get to that 3rd winner take all game. But the next time these 2 teams will play is tonight, Scott, 4:00. It's probably going on right now, actually, in Declo. And so I guess we'll find out pretty quick if Wendell can keep their season alive. But
yeah, we can. Otherwise, Declo is getting ready to head to state.
Yeah. And that 2A state tournament is wide open. Declo could get there and easily, I think, win it. So it's going to be pretty fun. Okay, let's talk the 1A Western Idaho Conference. This is District 3, Scott, but we have 2 District 4 teams that compete because there just aren't many District 4 teams that play 1A baseball. Glens Ferry and Lighthouse Christian. Now, it's hard to tell. We literally can't seed anything yet because not everybody has played the same number of conference games. I'm not sure how they're going to figure out the seeding and all that stuff. It's kind of a mess. This is a big league with 9 teams in it. The one thing we do know is that Lighthouse Christian is penciled in as the number 9 seed. That is the last seed because, as we've talked about a couple of times on the Prepcast this year, the Lions in their first year of baseball played kind of a hybrid JV varsity schedule, weren't a full-fledged member of the conference, and they said, basically, we know the deal. We'll just take the 9 seed coming into districts and see what happens. And yet, Lighthouse Christian beat the team that's in first place, Glens Ferry, earlier this year. Camden Boyd threw a no-hitter. And so this is not your typical 9 seed.
No, it isn't. It's one of those teams that is a 9 seed by default, but it's also a first-year program. So you never know. But the interesting thing about this tournament, I mean, there's 9 teams in it, and you cannot effectively have a 9-team district tournament. So the last 4 teams, 6, 7, 8, and 9, are going to have their own little tournament off to the side to figure out who the number 6 seed is to go play with the big boys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting setup how they have this, because they're going to start it May 8th, with those 6 versus 9, 7 versus 8 winners play on the right after each other.
Yeah.
Doubleheader style. And then the winner of that game advances to play in the real tournament, which is 2 days later. So that's a grueling district tournament, especially if you're one of those 4 bottom seeds.
Yeah, this is going to be held at Glens Ferry. They've got probably the best facilities in the entire conference. Great field there in Glens Ferry. So this is all happening Monday. Lighthouse is going to play Monday. If they win, they're going to have to play right again at 5:00. And then if they win that, the next game is only 2 days later on Wednesday. So Lighthouse would have to, in theory, find a third pitcher to try and knock off the 3 seed. And let's say they get to that point, then they're probably calling on a 4th starter because it's still only 3 days later on Thursday would be the semifinals. The thing about this bracket, Scott, is the 1 and 2 seeds basically get double buys. And so for Glens Ferry, who's currently in first place, Glens Ferry is in second place. Vision Charter is in first. But getting a top 2 seed for Glens Ferry would be huge because they're pretty much already guaranteed to play for one of the 4 spots to state, because even if Glens Ferry loses in this semifinal here, they're still playing in the 3rd and 4th place game here to get a spot at state. And so if Glens Ferry finishes in the top 2, they pretty much already clinched a spot at state, and they only have to use 2 pitchers, whereas Lighthouse may have to use 4 by the time they get to the same point.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the truth? And that's what makes this conference here so bizarre, because the top 2 seeds get the bye, and they pretty much, they've punched their ticket already. It's just a matter of what seed are they going to be coming out of here because of the 4 berths to state. So like you said, you take the number 2 seed who gets a bye and they play their first game and they win. Well, they're playing for either the first spot to state or the second spot to state. But you get that number 2 seed team, they have a bye, their very first game, they lose. Well, guess what? They're still going to state because it's now they're either going to be the 3rd seed or the 4th seed going to state. So weird. This
is a really interesting bracket. And so Glens Ferry has had a great season, and we'll see if they can get one of those top 2 seeds. And we'll keep an eye on Lighthouse as well as they try to pull off the ultimate Cinderella run here. They would have to win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in 5 days to win the district championship. So
such a far cry from being the number 6 seed or one of those play-in winners to the number 1 or 2 seed. I mean, just a vast difference.
Yeah, it's almost like in college basketball, the West Coast Conference, where Gonzaga and St. Mary's basically got triple buys into the semifinals this year.
Exactly.
Yeah, kind of interesting. All right, let's go to softball now. And again, we'll start at the 4A Great Basin Conference. Let me see here. This will load up. Okay, so Twin Falls is your 1 seed. Jerome is the 2 seed. You've got first round action tonight, the 4 and the 5, Canyon Ridge hosting Wood River. Burley is just like in baseball, the 3 seed. And so they are hosting the play-in game between 7 and 6. That's Mountain Home and Minico. The winner of that will then turn around and play the Bobcats. But what do you make of this tournament field here, Scott?
Well, you know what? It's an interesting field just because, again, you're talking about Twin and Jerome were the 2 teams that came out of this conference last year. And Mountain Home was really good last year, but they got upset. Jerome knocked them off, and Jerome knocked Twin off. And here we go. It's the same 2 teams again. Twin, bring this up really quick.
So Twin went 14 and 10 this year, 11 and 1 in the conference.
Right. And the thing about it is Twin Falls, who really started their season playing some really good teams. I mean, we're talking they're playing Highland of Pocatello and Middleton and Capital and LaGrande, Oregon and Mountain View, and Timberline, I mean, and they took their lumps, and that set them up perfectly for what they're doing down the stretch. And that's winning, right? So they are, like you said, 11 and 1 in the conference. Jerome is right behind them at 10 and 2. And those 2 losses, obviously both to Twin, and they were both by 1 run. And one of those games was a game that Jerome had it won and blew it. And both of those games, Jerome was playing without arguably their best offensive player. So these 2 teams are pretty evenly matched. And if it goes chalk, then obviously it's going to be a Jerome Twin, championship. But, there are some other teams in there that could surprise some people. And we talked about Wood River a little bit, having their pieces finally come together. And they are going to be they are the number 5 seed taking on Canyon Ridge. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Wood River's able to get by Canyon Ridge. And matter of fact, I'm going to call it right now. I think Wood River is going to win that game. And then they're going to take Twin.
And then, it gets interesting from there because we mentioned Wood River this year has been in a lot of tight games where they lost to Burley by a run and they lost to Jerome by a run. And so, yes, Wood River is a team that's got some dark horse potential. And for Twin Falls, they've kind of, just like in baseball, traditionally, it's been strong pitching, strong defense. The pitching isn't quite as dominant as it usually is this year. And I think that is what has opened the door a little bit for, it's not just Twin and lock it up. I mean, Twin this year is averaging 8.5 runs a game, but they're giving up almost 7.5. And so those are tight margins to play with.
Yeah, they are. They certainly are. And that's not what Twin has been used to, because you're right. They have had some dominant pitching in the past. And, this year it's a little bit more closer to the average. And they've just been able to outscore people, win close games. And in their conference, it's been no exception. They finally, Twin dropped a conference game, finally, the last game of the year in a 14-13 loss to Burley. Now, talk about Burley for a minute. Burley is not a slouch at all. I mean, this is a team that, finished at 500 on the year, but they are a much better than a 500 team. I mean, they've got some people that can throw the ball. I mean, they can put some girls in the circle that can really bring it. And they're not a bad hitting team either. So that's why I'm saying this conference right here with Burley and Wood River, the sneaky Burley and Wood River. Those are the 2 teams I think you watch out for.
Yeah, Burley's top 2 pitchers are Hallie Vaughn and then an Oakley girl, Cambry Beck. Oakley players come and play with Burley for baseball and softball, and they're both pretty evenly. They both complement each other well, and that's the thing. There's not that one dominant pitcher that you point to in softball in this conference and say, okay, she can put the team on her back and carry them. We talked about Mackenzie Nelson from Wood River, who threw that no-hitter a couple of weeks ago, but she's also had her ups and downs this year as well. And so there really isn't that one premier pitcher that gives everybody fits. I think that opens the door for just about anybody. In fact, when you look at run differential, Jerome's got the best run differential. They're scoring over 10 runs a game, and they're only allowing 7.2.
Yeah, either way, it's a lot of runs being scored, which shows that the dominant pitching isn't there. And each team, especially these top 3 teams at least, have somebody that they can put on the hill or in the circle rather, and do a good job. It comes down really to softball on the hitting part of it. When I'm looking at this second round game between, let's say Burley beats Minico or Mountain Home, and they should, and they go to Jerome to play, and that will be Saturday here at noon. Those 2 games that they played against each other were close. Jerome got them both times, one 8-7 and the other one 10-8. And so, I mean, I'm telling you, this Burley team is pretty dang good. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Buckle up. It's going to be an interesting ride through the Great Basin.
But I will say this about Jerome though. I mean, I got to prop my own people here, is that, Coach Hudd has done a great job getting this young team ready, because we had a lot of returners from last year state, and basically a bunch of sophomores from last year, and now they're juniors. We do have a handful of seniors, but the core is really a young group. And this is the first year on their brand new field, and so the buzz and the excitement is still there for them. And they seem to think that they got a bone to, well, they do have a bone to pick with Twin because they lost to them twice, not at full strength, and like, we can beat them. And in fact, last year they went over to Twin in the district tournament, beat Twin on their home field. So things are setting up very similar to how they were last year. We'll just see if the results are the same.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fun tournament to watch everybody duke it out. Really, the top 5 teams all capable of getting one of those 2 spots to state from this tournament here. All right, let's go to the 3A SCIC opening round games. Were last night. Same exact seedings as baseball. Kimberly 1, Buell 2, Gooding 3, Filer 4, and the same exact results.
Crazy.
Kimberly, the 1 seed, beats Filer 13-2 pretty easily. Gooding, after not being able to beat Buell in the regular season, gets the upset road win last night, 8-1.
Yeah, go figure. I mean, it's the exact same thing that happened in baseball. I mean, Kimberly rolls. Okay, Maddie Clark tore it up, home run, double, 3 RBIs. Freshman Addison Clark was 4 for 4. Freshman Addison Clark 4 for 4 with 4 ribbies, 4 runs scored. Not related, by the way. But again, the interesting thing you brought up is, like, here we go. Gooding beat Buell again after losing twice, 11-1 and 13-10 during the regular season. Go figure. So here we are.
And Kimberly did go with Mallory Kelsey, who's pretty much their primary pitcher, and she has been so good this year. She really is a difference maker for Kimberly in the circle, and I think she's going to give teams problems, not just in the district, obviously, but if and when Kimberly gets to state as well. I think having a player of Kelsey's caliber in the circle really gives Kimberly a fighting chance to compete for the state championship in 3A softball this year. They've had a great regular season.
Oh yeah, no question about it. And she was dominant, just 3 hits and 7 strikeouts. When you have somebody like that can throw, and you mentioned it before, I mean, they don't need a lot of depth in the pitching. You get one girl that can get in the circle and just start winging it. Hey, you've got something. And Mallory Kelsey is that something for Kimberly.
Yeah, Kimberly will host Gooding in the SCIC championship game Friday night at 5. Buell will host Filer with their season on the line Friday night at 5 as well. And I like how in basketball, we knew 2 teams were advancing to state, but they still made like the 3rd place team come around and challenge the 2nd place team. And it was a true double elimination. And we kind of talked about how the games were almost meaningless because spots had already been locked up to state. It looks like for softball and baseball, they've cleaned that up and reduced it to the minimum number of games to get 2 teams to state, which I thought was good. So
yeah, no, I agree. It makes a much cleaner district tournament.
Yeah, that's for sure. So we'll keep an eye on what's going on there. 2A Canyon Conference. Again, it's Declo and Wendell. This 3-game series starts tomorrow night, Friday night, 4:30 in Declo. The Hornets took 2 of 3 from Wendell during the regular season, so they get home field advantage here. Declo is a young team. Their top 2 hitters are a pair of sophomores, Scott.
Yeah, Jacoby Nebeker hitting .537 with 5 dingers, and sophomore Sage Wickel, .537, 17 doubles, 31 RBIs. I mean, when your youth is stepping it up and getting it done, it does motivate a lot of the other team, especially if you're seniors. And so, senior Caitlin Coyle is playing well, 18 RBIs, but and she's also Declo's top pitcher. So yeah, these young kids for Declo are really, really impressive.
Yeah, and Caitlin Coyle's had a couple of eye-opening performances this year. She was one of our primetime pitchers one week during the season. We do that every Tuesday. We give our primetime pitchers the top 5 pitching performances from the previous week. And so Caitlin Coyle's been pretty good. 3.32 ERA, 97 strikeouts. I mean, she's going to hit triple digits there probably in the next game. And then you look at Wendell, and Wendell's got the superior offensive player in Ainsley Clark, right? 575 average, 7 home runs, 47 RBIs. That surpasses anybody that Declo has. And Wendell's got really good balance behind that, but it's almost the opposite where Wendell's pitching has been a problem at times this year.
Yeah, that's the problem for Wendell. Their Achilles heel is going to be in the circle. Their only 3 pitchers this year are a sophomore and 2 freshmen. And, freshman Brianna Comstock has pitched the most innings, but she's got a 10.68 ERA, and their number 2 starter is a sophomore, Macy Bird. She's got 30 and 2/3 innings with a 6.16 ERA. But it's not, they don't have any pitchers. They just don't have any developed seasoned experienced pitchers, and so that's the problem for Wendell. They just don't have the pitching.
And so they have to hope to outslug Declo, which is tough, especially when Caitlin Coyle on the other side is so good at limiting the damage. And so we'll see if Declo can pull it off here. Game 1 of that series starts Friday night, but Declo is the favorite going in. And then we've got, again, the 1A District 3 tournament where Lighthouse Christian and Glens Ferry will be participating. Glens Ferry is currently in first place in this league, Scott. We can't officially seed anybody yet because there's still a litany of games. But look at how different this bracket is compared to the baseball one. It's the same number of teams, 9, but there's only one play-in game, 9 versus 8. And then it's a true 8-team double elimination bracket. I kind of like this a little better than the baseball one.
Yeah, it's easier when you can don't have to balance your pitching. You can just trot girls out there, a girl out there, and just let her wing it. Baseball, you just have to set it up differently. But yeah, this one is much, much easier. And there's a lot of games that are going to be played here in this tournament. Glens Ferry, you said, is currently sitting first. Lighthouse sitting 6th. Glens Ferry is, that was a team that's got some experience. I mean, 2 years ago, they won the 1A championship, and so they kind of reloaded with a young team, only 2 seniors and 1 junior, 6 sophomores and 6 freshmen. So this is a young team that just 2 years ago won a state title, and now they've got a youth movement, and guess what? They're in first place.
It's been a great formula where you still have those veteran players that were part of that success, but it is, you've mentioned kind of like Jerome, the core of the team is this group of sophomores and freshmen. And this is a team that's built on speed as well. Look at the stolen base numbers this year for Glens Ferry, Scott.
164 stolen bases as a team. 164. I mean, wrap your mind around that. And they've got 4 players that have got 25 or more steals. So you talk about manufacturing runs and putting people in position. This is a very aggressive Glens Ferry team. They're young, they're fast, they're aggressive, and they put a lot of pressure on a defense, so you can't make any mistakes against this team, so they've got, stolen bases. Taylor Martinez leads the way with 27. King, the junior, 26. Quinn King, the sophomore, 26 as well. So the Kings. And then Arevalo has got 25 as a freshman. So you can't fall asleep on the base paths or this team will make you pay.
Yeah, not only does Taylor Martinez lead the team in stolen bases as a sophomore with 27, she pitched a no-hitter against Notice earlier this week as well. So kudos to Taylor Martinez.
Yeah, no kidding. The sophomore getting it done at the plate, on the base paths, in the circle. This is I'm excited for the future of this Glens Ferry team because they're good now. Imagine 2 years from now how good this team could be. So yeah, Glens Ferry getting it done. Now you move over to Lighthouse. This is a team that is just kind of really all over the spectrum, with their stats and their numbers, and you just don't know what you're going to get. I mean, they're scoring almost 12 runs a game, but they're allowing over 15 runs a game, and some of, their games have just been marathon high scoring games, including, they beat Notice 23-22, which took 4.5 days to complete. They lost to Garden Valley twice, one 16-13, but another one in extra innings, 29-28. That one took a week and a half to play, So, this is really what Lighthouse does. And that's not all. They lost to Horseshoe Bend 36-32.
Yeah, that was last week.
Unbelievable. It's video game numbers when Lighthouse plays. And I am interested to see what they do in this tournament because they obviously don't have the pitching. I think that's pretty apparent. But boy, they get up there and they're not afraid to swing it.
They're fun to watch. I'll give you that. That is something else. It really is. It's kind of a coin flip. We know they're going to score. The question is can we just score one more than the other team? And sometimes they have, and sometimes they haven't. So
wow. Yeah, that's pretty exciting to watch. Just an aggressive team like Lighthouse at the plate. Just they don't care who you throw against them. They're gonna swing the bat and they're gonna make contact and they're gonna score runs. So you better be ready for them.
Yeah, and the way this tournament works, unlike baseball where the top 4 get to advance, out of this one, only the top 3 advance. And there's only 2 districts in 1A softball and baseball. There's District 2 up north, and then there's District 3. And in baseball, it's pretty simple. 4 from the north, 4 from District 3, and it's an 8-team tournament. Softball's a little different. They're going to take 3 from the north, 3 from District 3, and then the final 2 spots, Scott, are going to be at large spots, basically awarded to the teams with the highest max preps rankings. And I will tell you that Lighthouse currently is not high enough in max preps to get that at large bid, so they would have to finish in the top 3 if they want to get to state.
Yeah, and that's the difference between getting to state if you're Lighthouse or getting to state if you're Glens Ferry. Because Glens Ferry's got 2 avenues here. They can qualify outright through their district tournament, or they can rely on their max preps rankings, which will probably get them an at-large berth. Right. Lighthouse, on the other hand, they need to qualify or they're done.
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to see how all of this shakes out. But that is what's going on in district baseball and softball. The postseason is among us, Scott. This took a little long to navigate because there's a lot of hypotheticals still. By this time next week, teams will have already wrapped up bids. It'll be a little more clear cut, and we won't have to speculate and pontificate as much.
Ooh, I'm going to get my thesaurus out and figure out what you just said.
Right.
So I'm going to try to pontoon it, or Ponzi scheme. What did pontificate? There we go.
Speculate, pontificate, ruminate.
You're sounding like an NXS song.
You're right.
Somebody's going to get that out there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, it's going to be a much clearer picture next week when we talk, and we can be getting ready for state baseball, state softball. And where are you at?
For state baseball, I'm going to be at the 1A tournament up in Lewiston. So,
gee whiz.
It starts on Wednesday, actually. It goes Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So,
wow. Still, you make the trip from Pocatello all the way to the north.
Well, I thought by this point I'd be living in North Idaho. So
that was the plan originally.
So when I signed up for this gig months ago, I thought, oh yeah, that'll be just a short drive. But anyways,
yes, not so much anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. Those 1As are a ton of fun to call and broadcast. So the drive, not so much.
Yes. So it'll be a lot of fun. Of course, we'll have our state baseball preview show that we'll do live on IdahoSports.com as well. And IdahoSports.com is once again broadcasting every single pitch of every single state baseball tournament. So we've got about 10 days to go before we're hitting state. We will be back next week to talk more about district action. Until then, for Scott Burton, I'm Brandon Baney. Thanks for tuning into the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.